Pavel, welcome to True Story.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. As you guys know, I'm Nicole, the host of True Story, one of the hosts. And today we have Pavel Borecký with us. And he is involved with a really interesting project called Living Water. I watched the film. It brings up a lot of stories about not only how water, of course, is everything for all creatures, big and small, but our stories surrounding water. And this is a very particular story surrounding water. And with that, I would love just to get you to start speaking about this beautiful film.
Well, thank you, first of all, for your nice words. I mean, it's multi-layered, but every filmmaker tends to see many layers in his or her films. So I don't think I'm the first one. But to be honest, I spent 1 year, 2018, living in Jordan, doing my field work as a PhD researcher in Switzerland into water issues. More broadly, more generally, I visited different communities. I live in urban areas, in rural areas, north, south, and so on. And I came across this very unique story, which is the story of the most expensive infrastructural project in the Jordanian history. And when you hear something like that, you want to know more.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when it comes to digging stuff from underground. It was all about mining, as I later realized, of the underground water resources. So my hunch was, hey, let's go to the place where they take this water from. The water travels. So let's start with the source. And what do I find out when I, visit those communities, when I visit those different water users and so on? And I started noticing some tensions, conflicts, and I decided, okay, if I want to make a feature film, which originally I wanted, traveling to Jordan, I decided this is the right spot. This is a theme.
So going back, you've been a filmmaker for a while now, and you knew before your work in Jordan that you wanted to make a film there because of the landscape, because of the vibe, because of how different it is from the Czech Republic?
Well, if I try to be brief, I've been always attracted by extremes of different kinds. Like I did research in Amazon into indigenous traditional knowledge, like hoping that using a camera can help us to, safeguard traditional heritage in new, novel ways, rather than just describing it in text. We should take photographs, be present, use bodies, accept that bodies are our main tools we use to know the world. So I did this kind of research in Amazon, and then I got attracted by deserts. What's happening with the desert people, with indigenous populations in the deserts. I made a short film in Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, which is the place not many people know, unfortunately, but it's a semi-recognized state created around the refugee communities in the south of Algeria. And it's protracted, unresolved refugee crisis. And those people were stuck there because of the international relations for 3 generations. And their story is kind of comparable to the story of Palestinians. They were sort of evicted from the land they kind of feel entitled to, Western Sahara, and Moroccans stepped in. I don't want to go into details of the Western Sahara conflict, but here we are with the kicking climate change. Those populations are living deep in the Sahara, and it's tough in summer. And imagine young people, elderly people, really being stuck there, but having this dream of return to their homeland only if they remain strong and, protect the cause.
Storytelling.
Yeah, storytelling. And I made a short film using sensory ethnography methods. And I mean, hopefully we'll go more into details of how the film is made. What is sensory ethnography, which is I'm quite fond of this strategy, narrative strategy, or storytelling strategy. And so this was one sort of a side project I did 2016 while getting ready for Jordan. And Jordan, how this happened to be. I was invited to work as a curator for Goethe Institute. And they sent me with Lukáš Houdek, perhaps you know Lukáš, a Czech activist, photographer.
I don't know him personally, but...
Okay, no, he's a great man. He does a great job. Hello, Lukáš. Lukáš, if you're listening, I'm sending my greetings. And with Petra Ji.hlava.
Okay,
Petra
yes.
Ji.hlava, Czech writer. And we teamed up with the 2 Jordanian curators. And we were preparing a cultural program for Prague in between Jordan and Czech Republic in times of the so-called refugee crisis. The idea was to show that there is much more things in common than because of those neo-Nazis, walking around and telling us how Islam is dangerous and so on.
Yeah.
We need to look into commonalities and build bridges. And it resonated with me. So I traveled to Jordan and I discover amazing things.
Yeah.
And
the patterns that connect us all, water being one of them.
It's kind of I always like dystopic novels. And in some sense, it's super dystopic already. But these guys are extremely resilient, Jordanians, but they are in a tough spot, okay? Geographically. And they don't have much firepower, like resources. They don't have oil. But at the same time, they've been hosting 6 so-called waves of refugees in 20th century. So the whole Jordanian society is built around refugees.
Got it.
And they kept accepting them, knowing that they have very little to share. So for me, this is like amazing story, especially for Europeans. We live like princesses.
True Story is a documentary podcast powered by the Institute of Documentary Film. You can find news from the world of film on all the common platforms such as iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, as well as on docweb.net.
But no matter what, resources are not renewable in the way that we know them to be. We have to have a more sustainable relationship with the world, the blue planet in total. So I'd love to speak a little bit about sustainability as a concept in that region.
Well, it's a big topic, but I would like to start somehow reflecting on the idea of scarcity.
Okay.
There is not enough, or
the concept, the story of scarcity.
The concept of scarcity itself. Okay. And I mean, if you look into the work of, let's say, political ecology, which is a growing field. I recommend everyone to Google this up, political ecology. One of the dominant narratives, or let's say the fields of exploration, is the fact how scarcity is constructed through language and through politics. How resources are not just something out there, that it has been lying there in a specific quantity, and then it's up to us to distribute it in a fair way. To a certain extent, this is true, right? The amount of gold in the world
is limited.
The quantitative perspective matters, but at the same time, what matters even more is what do you do about it? How you discuss this scarcity. Scarcity for whom? Who has more? Who has less? And I have my very dear friend and the Living Water collaborator, Hussam Hussein. He's a consultant in the film, and he's a water expert and international relations expert. He wrote a PhD thesis, really inspiring, on how the scarcity is created in Jordanian society. So he was trying to question the role of the powerful, using the scarcity. Oh, we don't have enough here.
The language of scarcity.
Yes.
As a fear tactic.
Yes, and as a control tactic.
Absolutely.
And now listen to us. We know what to do. We don't have much. We have a power, we have knowledge, so you better listen to our decisions. And very often he noticed this has been used to belittle and to exclude and disenfranchise.
I understand completely what you're saying, and also with that, it raises the issue of personal responsibility. And in many, many ways and many layers, that overarching feeling of, these are our government leaders, they know everything. I feel like people feel this way about doctors too.
Yeah.
And doctors are just people who studied something specific.
Yes.
They know something maybe more than we do, but you also should listen to your own body and have personal responsibility. Is that some of what you saw as well and hear in that language of scarcity? A lack of personal responsibility? Or people have a drive for personal responsibility and I want to manage my own water?
There are different ways how to answer
Get
this.
into the topic,
like
yeah.
one of them is a tribal politics in Jordan. It's still pretty much present. It's relatively new state. It emerged after the fall of Ottoman Empire and after this brief era of Western colonialism, which somehow lasts until today, of Brits and French. So it's relatively young state, and it's built around several influential families, and this legacy lasts until today. So the king, because we are talking about a monarchy, is sort of a moderator of relations and a poster boy for the outside world. And he does the job well. I mean, honestly, he does the job well. In many ways, he's a great leader, and he, in the same way as his father, respected by international community. But to be honest, there are certain spheres in Jordanian economy that is under the grip of people who don't really care about people.
Yeah,
And let's face it, agriculture is unfortunately one of them. And here we go into the water issues.
Yep. On that note, let's take a moment. Let's watch the trailer.
Sure,
Yeah?
yes.
Okay.
If we have our station, you will see very green here. A lot of growing. The people, they will farm, make olives, everything. If the people didn't have water, they will die. So the people, they are the center of all.
It will become a huge city. The only water resources for Aqaba now comes from this aquifer. But you know, it's a fossil water.
Well, it's a beautiful film, and I know that hopefully by the end we'll speak about the sensory ethnography that you mentioned. But just, in regards to our conversation and everything that we're talking about, your research, your history, your personal interests, are you proud? You've made a beautiful film about topics that are really important to you.
I don't know. There's this urge, and then you try to do your best with what you can, what you have. honestly, it's a small film. We have a little crew. It was me and my good friend John Grzinic. We had some plans what to do, where to go, what to shoot, but it was very organic, and we were the band of two. But I mean, we always care about the quality, getting as close to the sense of place, getting it right, different moments, different seasons. We care a lot about sense of place, and we believe this sense of presence balanced with what is communicated through language. It was the biggest challenge. Because we did not want to, throw too many words at you. But at the same time, the politics, the science, the relationships, it tends to draw you back to words. I need to explain this through words. Or maybe no, I need to find the right place, and I need to show it, hint it, trust the viewer, and you go always back and forth.
Totally.
I didn't want this to be a talking heads thing, so that's why we opt out. And here I go more into a style of the film. There are these voices like flying in the air, and it might be everyone and no one at the same time. We're trying to experiment there a bit.
Okay.
And maybe this is what I'm a little bit proud about.
Okay.
Going for the quality, balancing out the sense of place with words, spoken words, and giving a viewer place to, I would say, interpret to a certain extent. Like, what is this really about? Clear message we want to give. The water is such and such. Like, some factual information needs to come across. And then you are free to draw your conclusions, and we give you space to draw your conclusions through historical material, through sensations of place, and open-ended question at the end. Where do we go next?
That's always
the question. This tricky question of if I'm proud. Honestly, when I go back next year to Jordan, and I see people accepting the film and having discussions about it and kind of driving the conversations further and forward with my friends and colleagues in Jordan, perhaps elsewhere in the Middle East, this would make me feel I accomplished something.
True Story is a documentary podcast powered by the Institute of Documentary Film. You can find news from the world of film on all the common platforms such as iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, as well as on docweb.net.
I'm sort of trying not to draw too much attention to me as a director. I'm just mediating certain type of conversations that perhaps I don't want to go fancy and like talking about global community. Let's start somewhere. Let's start in Jordan. So since this is a story of Jordan and for Jordan, I'm going back next year with the help of Swiss Development Agency, which is funding a string of public events and moderated debate discussions, panel debates, and workshops in 5 different places across Jordan. And we want to push certain agendas further. And this is a story of sustainability. It's a story of climate change. My film portrays certain moments of climate change, certain impacts of climate change, and shows vulnerability, shows shock. And it's shocking in many ways. And in the Middle East, if you look a little bit into the work of scientists, whom we need to listen more and actually craft our policies according to instructions of scientists, which this film actually promotes as well, because it features important hydrogeologists, actually female hydrogeologists. And I will not tell you more. You have to watch the film.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. We want to use the film as a trigger for certain agendas, and I would not go as far as saying like a cultural shift, because Jordanians are used to having very little water. But it's more about shift to innovations. Let's collaborate across the disciplines, across the sectors. We don't even know how to do this properly in Central Europe. They can be much better in Jordan as well. So inspire certain drive, and hopefully cinema can do something little for us.
Let's speak about sensory ethnography for a minute. The sound is a character, I would say, in this film. So using that as a platform, can you speak a little bit more about sensory ethnography as a topic?
Yes.
Or as a tool?
Or both. It's we intentionally, with John, we wanted to work with and around water and the technologies that are interconnected with water distribution, water extraction, to kind of give enough space in our attention span, or however you call it, to the element itself. How it's sort of a screaming for help in a way, or how it's constrained and channeled and used, and so on. And it's a non-human element. I mean, it doesn't have a life. Like recently, Kosakowski made this fabulous film Gunda, and we kind of know how to empathize with animals. I mean, in our brains, in our cultures, we see them as living beings, right? So it's relatively easy to push forward the sympathy and to push forward for animal rights. And I don't understand why this is not a standard globally, but it's relatively doable, I would say. But how about minerals? Who cares for minerals, you know? And now they're
an unrepresented group.
Yes, yes. We need more solidarity with our non-human mineral world. And it's just not lying there for anyone to take it. And water is this in-between. That's funny about water. It's mesmerizing, it's always transforming. Without water, we cannot be human. But at the same time, it doesn't have a life in our old modernistic way of looking at things. So we're kind of playing around in this with this polarity, trying to blur it a bit.
Dancing with water.
Yeah, you can call it this way.
What are the next steps for the film? How can we see it? How can we support you? How can we support more people seeing your film as well?
Well, so let's start with something egoistic. I mean, look, I said this is relatively a small, humble production, and there is still a crowdfunding campaign running, and we are not really pushing that much in this direction anymore. We are grateful for every support we got. But
how do people find the crowdfunding? Say it on the online.
If they go to livingwaterfilm.com website, there is a link, and they can check. We are offering different sorts of rewards, me including. I can visit you in your living room and we
have
can
a deep chat.
I can have a chat about the film.
Wonderful.
But so that's sort of a, production side of things. But the film itself is finished, and we are now planning hard its next life. We are hoping for a nice. I mean, the start at Ji.hlava. I'm really grateful for this. I enjoy, despite the fact it was all online. It was enjoyable, and the organizers did a great job.
Congratulations.
But we are hoping for real cinema, hopefully in March.
Okay.
And now we are in discussion with different programmers in Europe, and hopefully someone would pick it up. And I'm all about raising awareness. So whoever wants to tie together science, arts, water, environmental issues, I think this is a case study we can build upon, weave together, and use it further in whichever context you might imagine. I mean, the climate challenge is a story. It's a challenge of our time, and let's just do something about it.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for being here, Pavel.
Thank you for inviting me.
True Story is a documentary podcast powered by the Institute of Documentary Film. You can find news from the world of film on all the common platforms such as iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, as well as on docweb.net.